In a distant corner of the galaxy, on a planet called Lyria, representatives from dozens of alien species gathered in a grand hall. The air buzzed with tension as they sat around a massive circular table, their faces painted with worry and suspicion. For years, humans and aliens had tried to live together peacefully, but disagreements over land, resources, and technology had made that dream feel impossible. Today was supposed to be different. Today, everyone hoped, would mark the end of conflicts and the start of a new era. Benjamin Cole, the human ambassador, stood at the center of the room. His sharp suit and calm demeanor gave him an air of authority, but inside, he felt uneasy. He glanced at the other delegates, some with scales, others with fur or glowing eyes, and wondered if peace was truly possible. The discussions had gone on for hours, each side accusing the other of betrayal and greed. Benjamin had listened patiently, trying to find common ground, but it seemed like every word only made things worse. Suddenly, one of the Krill ambassadors slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Enough," he barked, his voice echoing through the room. "You humans take what isn't yours. You destroy planets, steal resources, and then blame us when we fight back." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to Benjamin, waiting for his response. He took a deep breath and straightened his posture. "We came here to talk," he said firmly, "but you refuse to listen. Your accusations are baseless and unfair." Before anyone could reply, another delegate, this time from the Valens, spoke up. Her soft voice carried a tone of sadness. "Ambassador Cole, we want peace too. But how can we trust you when your actions speak louder than your words?" Benjamin hesitated. He looked around the room again, seeing the anger and frustration etched on every face. Something inside him snapped. Without thinking, he stepped back from the table and declared, "If this is how you see us, then there's no point in continuing these talks. Earth will not waste its time here any longer." Gasps filled the room. Some delegates shouted protests, while others muttered among themselves. Benjamin ignored them all. He turned and walked toward the exit, his footsteps heavy but determined. Behind him, chaos erupted. Voices rose in argument. Chairs scraped against the floor, and guards moved quickly to restore order. But it was too late. The fragile thread holding the galaxy together had broken. Outside the hall, Benjamin stopped and leaned against a wall. His heart raced as he realized the weight of what he had just done. He had abandoned the peace talks, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. What would happen now? Would the galaxy descend into war, or would someone step forward to fix the mess he had created? As he stood there lost in thought, a young diplomat named Nathan Brooks approached him. Nathan's face was pale, and his hands trembled slightly. "Sir," he began, "do you really think this was the right decision?" Benjamin didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared off into the distance, where ships from countless worlds hovered in the sky. Finally, he sighed and said, "I don't know, Nathan. I honestly don't know." And with that, he walked away, leaving Nathan standing alone in the shadow of uncertainty. Back on Earth, President Laura Hayes stood in front of a large screen in the United Nations Assembly Hall. Her expression was calm, but her eyes betrayed the stress she carried. Cameras flashed as reporters and diplomats crowded the room, eager to hear her explanation for abandoning the peace talks on Lyria. Laura took a deep breath before speaking. "Today marks a turning point for humanity," she began, her voice steady. "We have tried again and again to work with our alien neighbors, but they refuse to see us as equals. They accuse us of crimes we did not commit and demand sacrifices we cannot make. Enough is enough. Earth will no longer sit at the table with those who seek only to undermine us." Her words echoed through the hall, met with a mix of applause and murmurs of concern. Some people clapped loudly, believing the president had made the right choice. Others exchanged worried glances, fearing what this decision might mean for the future. Outside the building, protests erupted almost immediately. Crowds filled the streets, holding signs that read "Peace Now" and "Don't Abandon the Galaxy." The world was divided. Meanwhile, on Lyria, Nathan Brooks struggled to process what had happened. He had always believed in diplomacy, in finding ways to bridge the gap between species. But now, after Benjamin Cole's abrupt exit, he felt lost. As he walked through the halls of the embassy, he bumped into Elena Ramirez, a journalist who had been covering the peace summit. She noticed the troubled look on his face and stopped him. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. Nathan shook his head. "No, I'm not. This whole thing feels wrong. Why would we just walk away like that? It doesn't make sense." Elena crossed her arms and glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "It doesn't add up for me either," she admitted. "But I've heard rumors, whispers about secret experiments being run by Earth's military. Something called Project Eclipse. Have you heard anything about it?" Nathan frowned. "Project Eclipse? No, I haven't. What kind of experiments?" Elena hesitated, then lowered her voice even more. "I don't know all the details, but apparently they're using alien tech to build weapons. If that's true, it could explain why the aliens are so angry. Maybe they know something we don't." The idea sent a chill down Nathan's spine. He had always trusted his government to act in humanity's best interest, but now doubt crept into his mind. Could Earth really be doing something so dangerous behind everyone's back? Determined to find answers, Nathan decided to dig deeper. Over the next few days, he spent hours sifting through classified files and encrypted messages. It wasn't easy. His access was limited, and he risked getting caught. But eventually, he found something. A single document mentioned Project Eclipse, describing it as a top-secret initiative led by General Samuel Drake. The details were vague, but one line stood out: development of advanced offensive capabilities utilizing captured alien technology. Nathan stared at the screen, his heart pounding. This was worse than he imagined. He knew he couldn't keep this information to himself, so he reached out to Elena. Together, they met late at night in a quiet corner of the embassy library. "We need to tell people about this," Elena said, her voice urgent. "If the public finds out what's really going on, they'll demand answers." "But if we go public, we'll be branded as traitors," Nathan replied, running a hand through his hair. "And I'm not sure anyone will believe us." Elena placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes, doing the right thing means taking risks. Do you want to live in a galaxy where fear rules over trust?" Nathan thought about her words for a moment. Then, with a deep sigh, he nodded. "Okay, let's do it." As they left the library, neither of them noticed the shadowy figure watching from the doorway. Their discovery would change everything, but not without consequences. The galaxy was already on edge, but the tension exploded into violence within days of Earth's withdrawal from the peace talks. The fragile alliances that had held for years began to crumble. On a distant moon orbiting a gas giant, the Valens, a peaceful species known for their shimmering blue skin and diplomatic nature, were ambushed by the Krill. The attack came without warning, swift and brutal. Ships descended from the sky, firing beams of energy that tore through Valen settlements. Panic spread as families fled their homes, seeking shelter in caves and underground tunnels. Reports later revealed that the Krill had been provoked. Someone, rumors pointed to rogue human operatives, had planted false intelligence suggesting the Valens were planning an assault on Krill territory. Whether it was true or not didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. The Krill, a militant insectoid race with a reputation for aggression, saw this as an act of war. Their queen vowed vengeance, promising to strike at humanity and anyone who stood with them. On board the starship Aurora, Captain Ryan Mitchell watched the news unfold with growing unease. The ship was stationed near the edge of human-controlled space, tasked with patrolling the borders and protecting colonies. But now, orders had come from Earth: abandon the outer colonies and reinforce defenses closer to home. Ryan stared at the message on his screen, his jaw tightening. He knew what it meant. Leaving the colonies unprotected would leave millions of civilians vulnerable to retaliation. In the crew lounge, whispers of dissent spread among the sailors. Many felt uneasy about abandoning their own people. Lissa Carter, a young engineer, voiced her frustration during dinner. "It's wrong," she said, poking at her food with a fork. "We can't just leave those colonies behind. They'll be sitting ducks out there." Her friend, Marcus Lane, nodded grimly. "I know. But orders are orders. What choice do we have?" Ryan overheard their conversation and stepped into the room. "Listen up," he said, his voice firm but calm. "I understand how you feel. Believe me, I don't like this any more than you do. But remember why we're here: to protect lives. If we stay scattered, we won't stand a chance against the krill. We need to regroup and plan our next move carefully." Though his words reassured some, others remained unconvinced. Among them was Lieutenant Sarah Blake, the ship's navigator. She approached Ryan later that evening, her arms crossed. "Sir," she began, "with all due respect, I think we're making a mistake. Those colonies rely on us. If we pull back, they'll lose faith in Earth entirely." Ryan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I hear you, Sarah, but right now we follow orders. Once we get closer to Earth, maybe we can push for a better strategy. Until then, we hold the line." As the Aurora prepared to leave its post, chaos erupted elsewhere in the galaxy. Refugees poured into neutral zones, fleeing both the krill attacks and internal conflicts sparked by distrust. On Lyria, Nathan Brooks and Alina Ramirez worked tirelessly to uncover more evidence about Project Eclipse. Every day brought new challenges, but they pressed on, driven by the hope that exposing the truth could still bring peace. Far away, General Samuel Drake monitored the situation from his command center on Earth. His cold eyes scanned reports of escalating violence across the galaxy. To him, it was proof that his project was necessary. Humanity needed power to survive, even if it came at a cost. As he leaned back in his chair, a faint smile crossed his face. The galaxy might be falling apart, but in his mind, Earth would rise above it all. Or so he believed. Alina Ramirez sat in a dimly lit corner of her small apartment on Lyria, staring at the files Nathan had shared with her. The information about Project Eclipse was shocking, more than she had imagined. It wasn't just about building weapons. It was about using alien technology to create tools of destruction so advanced that they could tip the balance of power in Earth's favor. Alina felt a mix of anger and fear as she scrolled through the documents. This wasn't just unethical, it was dangerous. If the galaxy found out, it could mean all-out war. Nathan paced back and forth in the room, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. "We can't keep this to ourselves," he said finally, breaking the silence. "People need to know what's happening. If we stay quiet, we're just as guilty as those running the project." Alina nodded, but her face showed doubt. "I agree, but how do we even start? If we go public and get it wrong, they'll crush us. They'll say we're lying or call us traitors. Maybe worse." Nathan stopped pacing and looked at her. "What's the alternative? Let them keep doing this. Look at what's already happening. The krill attacking, colonies abandoned, people dying. This is bigger than us, Alina. We have to try." After a long pause, Alina sighed and stood up. "Okay, but we need proof. Solid, undeniable proof. Something no one can ignore." The two spent the next few days working tirelessly. They reached out to contacts, digging deeper into classified networks. Their search led them to Mia Chen, a former scientist who had once worked on Project Eclipse, but left after disagreeing with its goals. Maya lived quietly on a remote station, avoiding attention. When Nathan and Alina arrived, she greeted them cautiously, her sharp eyes studying their faces. "You're risking a lot by coming here," Maya said as she poured tea for them. "If anyone finds out I talked to you, I'm dead." "We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important," Nathan replied earnestly. "We need your help. You've seen what they're doing. Doesn't it scare you?" Mia hesitated, then nodded. It does. But fear doesn't change anything. What exactly are you looking for? Anything that proves Project Eclipse exists, Alina explained. Documents, recordings, anything real. Something we can show the galaxy. Mia thought for a moment, then walked over to a locked cabinet. She pulled out a small data chip and handed it to them. This is everything I saved before I left. Test results, design plans, internal memos. It's not much, but it's enough to make waves. Nathan took the chip carefully, his hands trembling slightly. Thank you, he said softly. You have no idea how much this means. As they left Maya's station, Nathan and Alina knew they were running out of time. Rumors of their investigation were spreading, and shadowy figures seemed to be watching their every move. One night, as they returned to Alina's apartment, they noticed someone following them, a man in a dark coat, his face partially hidden. They quickened their pace, slipping into a crowded market to lose him. For now, they escaped, but the encounter left them shaken. Back at the apartment, they began organizing the evidence. Alina uploaded the data onto secure servers while Nathan drafted a statement to accompany it. They planned to release everything during an interstellar broadcast, ensuring the entire galaxy would hear the truth. Neither of them slept much that night, knowing the risks involved. The weight of their actions began to press heavily on Nathan Brooks and Alina Ramirez. Every step they took felt like walking on thin ice, knowing that one wrong move could send them crashing into danger. They had the evidence about Project Eclipse, but sharing it with the galaxy was no simple task. The closer they got to exposing the truth, the more threats seemed to surround them. One evening, as they left a secure meeting with a sympathetic alien diplomat, a sudden explosion rocked the street behind them. Flames erupted from a nearby building, sending debris flying in all directions. People screamed and ran for cover. Nathan grabbed Alina's arm, pulling her into an alleyway just as a group of armed men appeared, scanning the chaos for something or someone. "Stay low," Nathan whispered, his voice tense. He peeked around the corner and saw the men moving methodically through the crowd. They weren't wearing uniforms, but their weapons looked advanced, far beyond what ordinary mercenaries would carry. Whoever these people were, they meant business. Alina crouched beside him, her heart racing. "They're after us, aren't they?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Nathan nodded grimly. "We need to get out of here. Now." They moved quickly, weaving through back streets and alleys, until they reached a safe house Alina had arranged earlier. It was a small, unassuming apartment tucked away in a quiet part of the city. Once inside, they locked the door and drew the curtains, breathing hard from the adrenaline rush. "This can't keep happening," Alina said, sinking onto the couch. Her hands trembled as she clutched a cup of water. "If they find us before we release the evidence, everything we've worked for will be lost." Nathan sat down beside her, his mind racing. "We need help, someone who can protect us while we finish this." That's when Maya Chen came to mind. The former scientist had risked her life to give them the data chip, and she had mentioned having allies who might assist. Nathan contacted her immediately, explaining their situation. Mia agreed to meet them at a neutral location outside the city. When they arrived, Maya was waiting with another person, a tall, broad-shouldered alien named Zara Ven. Zara's greenish skin shimmered faintly under the dim light, and her golden eyes studied Nathan and Alina carefully. She introduced herself as a leader of the Sci-Fi, a peaceful species known for their wisdom and neutrality. "You've made powerful enemies," Zara said bluntly after hearing their story. "But your cause is just. My people have seen enough suffering caused by Earth's greed. We will offer you sanctuary and help you spread your message." Relief washed over Nathan and Alina, though they knew the fight was far from over. With Zara's support, they relocated to a hidden, stealthy outpost deep in the wilderness. There, they prepared for the final step, broadcasting the evidence to the galaxy. Benjamin Cole, the former ambassador, also heard whispers of their plan. Haunted by his decision to abandon the peace talks, he realized he had a chance to make amends. He reached out to Nathan and Alina, offering his assistance. Though skeptical at first, they agreed to let him join them, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. On the day of the broadcast, tension filled the air. Nathan and Alina stood beside Zara and Benjamin, watching as technicians readied the transmission equipment. This was it, the moment that would decide the fate of billions. If this works, Benjamin said quietly, it won't fix everything, but it'll be a start. Alina glanced at him, then at Nathan. Let's hope it's enough. As the signal went live, the four of them held their breath, waiting for the galaxy's reaction. Whatever happened next, they knew they had done what they could to shine a light in the darkness. The broadcast began, and the galaxy held its breath. Nathan Brooks stood beside Alina Ramirez in the Silthy Outpost communications room, watching as the stolen files about Project Eclipse filled screens across countless worlds. The evidence was undeniable. Videos of experiments, internal memos detailing Earth's plans, and images of devastating environmental damage caused by the project's testing. It was all there, laid bare for everyone to see. At first, silence fell over the galaxy. Then, slowly, reactions poured in. On Earth, protests erupted in major cities. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, holding signs that read, "Stop the lies," and "No more secrets." Journalists scrambled to report on the story, bombarding officials with questions. President Laura Hayes appeared visibly shaken during an emergency press conference, her usual composure cracking under the weight of public outrage. In space, the response was equally fierce. Alien leaders who had once distrusted humanity now saw confirmation of their worst fears. The Krill Queen issued a fiery statement, calling Earth's actions a betrayal of galactic trust. Other species, however, were more measured in their reactions. Some called for immediate sanctions against Earth, while others urged restraint, hoping to avoid further violence. Amidst the chaos, Captain Ryan Mitchell made a bold decision aboard the Aurora. When he received orders to intercept ships carrying refugees fleeing conflict zones, he refused. Instead, he rerouted the ship to protect those vulnerable civilians, knowing full well it could cost him his career or worse. "This isn't about following orders anymore," Ryan told his crew during a tense meeting. "It's about doing what's right. If we turn our backs on innocent people, then we're no better than the ones running Project Eclipse." His words resonated with many of the sailors, though not all agreed. Lieutenant Sarah Blake voiced her concerns privately later that evening. "Sir, I understand why you're doing this, but we're risking everything. What if they send someone after us?" Ryan looked at her, his expression firm but kind. "Then we'll deal with it when it comes. For now, let's focus on saving lives." As the Aurora moved into position near a colony under attack by the Krill, news of Ryan's rebellion spread quickly. Other ships in the fleet began questioning their own missions, inspired by his defiance. Though isolated, Ryan felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity wasn't beyond redemption. Back at the Silthy outpost, Nathan and Alina watched the unfolding events with mixed emotions. They had done what they set out to do, but the consequences were overwhelming. Benjamin Cole approached them, his face lined with worry. "You've started something big," he said, "but the hardest part is still ahead." Before anyone could respond, Zara Venn entered the room. Her golden eyes scanned the group before she spoke. "The Krill are preparing for another strike, a large one. Their target is Sol, Earth's home system. If they succeed, humanity may never recover." A heavy silence settled over the room. Nathan broke it first. "Is there any way to stop them?" Zara nodded slowly. "There might be, but it will require cooperation, not just from humans, but from every species willing to fight for peace. Are you ready to take that step?" Alina exchanged a glance with Nathan, then turned back to Zara. "We don't have a choice. If we don't try, the galaxy will burn." With time running out, Zara proposed a daring plan. A coalition of smaller alien races, led by the Selfie, would unite to negotiate a ceasefire between Earth and the Krill. It was a long shot, but it offered a glimmer of hope. As preparations began, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against fate itself. In the end, it came down to one question. Could fear and distrust be replaced with understanding? The galaxy waited anxiously for an answer. The coalition of alien species gathered in a hidden asteroid base, far from the reach of both Earth's forces and the Krill. Zara Van stood at the center of the meeting room, her calm but commanding presence uniting the diverse group. Representatives from the Sylphi, the Valens, and several smaller species sat around the table, their faces filled with determination. Nathan Brooks and Alina Ramirez were there too, invited by Zara to share their knowledge and help shape the plan. "We can't defeat the Krill through force alone," Zara began, her voice steady. "But we can weaken their resolve by showing them that not all humans are their enemy. If we act together, we might convince them to halt their attack on Sol." Nathan leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "And how do we do that? The Krill don't trust anyone right now." Zara nodded. "That's why we need someone willing to take a great risk. Someone who can speak directly to the Krill Queen and prove our intentions are sincere." Benjamin Cole, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, suddenly spoke up. "I'll do it." Everyone turned to look at him, surprised. Nathan frowned. "Are you sure about this? They could kill you before you even get close." Benjamin met his gaze without flinching. "I'm the one who walked away from the peace talks. If anyone owes it to the galaxy to fix this, it's me. Besides, I've spent years working with alien diplomats. Maybe I can still find a way to reason with them." After a moment of hesitation, Zora agreed. "Very well. But you won't go alone. We'll send a small escort to ensure your safety." Over the next few days, the coalition worked tirelessly to prepare for the mission. A team of skilled pilots and engineers readied a sleek, unarmed shuttle designed to signal peaceful intentions. Meanwhile, Nathan and Elena finalized a message to accompany Benjamin's plea, a recording explaining the coalition's goals and urging the Krill to consider a ceasefire. When the day arrived, Benjamin climbed aboard the shuttle, flanked by two Sylphi guards. As the ship launched into space, Nathan watched anxiously from the asteroid base's observation deck. "Do you think he can pull it off?" he asked Alina. She sighed, her arms crossed. "He has to. Otherwise, we're out of options." The journey to the Krill stronghold was tense. Benjamin knew the odds were against him, but he focused on the task ahead. When they finally reached the massive hive-like structure orbiting a dying star, the shuttle was surrounded by Krill fighters. For a moment, it seemed like the mission would end before it began. But then, a transmission crackled through the speakers. "You may land," a cold, insectoid voice commanded. "But know this, deception will mean death." As Benjamin stepped onto the platform inside the Krill fortress, he felt the weight of countless lives resting on his shoulders. The Krill Queen awaited him, her towering form exuding power and menace. Her multifaceted eyes glinted as she studied him. "Why have you come, human?" she demanded, her voice sharp. Benjamin took a deep breath. "To stop the cycle of destruction. To show you that not all humans seek war. If we work together, we can build something better, for everyone." For a long moment, the Queen said nothing. Then, to everyone's surprise, she signaled for her guards to stand down. "Prove it," she said simply. "Show me that your words are true." Back at the asteroid base, the coalition waited anxiously for news. When Benjamin's message finally came through, confirming that the Krill were open to negotiations, a wave of relief swept through the group. It wasn't victory yet, but it was a start. Together, they began drafting terms for a fragile truce, hoping it would be enough to save the galaxy from chaos. The ceasefire negotiations took place on a neutral moon, its surface barren and lifeless but symbolic of the fragile peace everyone hoped to achieve. Representatives from Earth, the Krill, and the coalition of smaller alien species gathered in a large, circular chamber carved into the rock. The air was tense, filled with unspoken anger and suspicion. At the center of it all stood Benjamin Cole, his face pale but resolute as he faced the Krill Queen. "We've done terrible things," Benjamin began, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. "We abandoned talks when we should have listened. We used alien technology to build weapons instead of bridges, but we're here now because we want to change, to make things right." The Krill Queen tilted her head slightly, her sharp eyes studying him. "Your apology means little without action," she replied coldly. "Prove to us that you're sincere." Zara Venn stepped forward then, her golden skin glowing faintly under the dim lights. "We propose a shared agreement," she said, her tone calm but firm. "Earth will dismantle Project Eclipse and halt all military expansion. In return, the Krill will withdraw their forces from human colonies and cease attacks. A neutral council, made up of representatives from all species, will oversee this process." Murmurs spread through the room as delegates discussed the terms. Some were skeptical, while others saw it as a chance to move forward. Nathan Brooks watched silently from the sidelines, his heart pounding. He knew how delicate this moment was. If even one side refused, the galaxy would plunge back into chaos. After what felt like hours, the Krill Queen finally nodded. "We accept these terms," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "But know this, if Earth breaks its promise, there will be no second chances." Cheers erupted among the coalition members, though they were cautious and subdued. For the first time in years, hope flickered in the hearts of those who had fought so hard for peace. Nathan glanced at Alina, who smiled weakly, tears glistening in her eyes. They had done it, or at least started something that could lead to lasting change. Back on Earth, President Laura Hayes addressed the public once again, this time with humility. "Our actions have caused pain and suffering across the galaxy," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But we are committed to rebuilding trust, to proving that humanity can be better." Her words sparked mixed reactions. While some citizens applauded the decision, others remained angry, blaming the government for bowing to alien demands. Protests continued in cities worldwide, but they were smaller now, less violent. Slowly, people began to focus on healing rather than hatred. Meanwhile, General Samuel Drake found himself isolated. His aggressive tactics had led to disaster, and his role in Project Eclipse became public knowledge. Stripped of his rank, he disappeared from the spotlight, though rumors swirled about secret trials and investigations. Captain Ryan Mitchell and the crew of the Aurora received news of the ceasefire with relief. Their defiance had inspired others in the fleet to question unjust orders, sparking reforms within Earth's military. Though Ryan knew he might face consequences for his rebellion, he felt no regret. Sometimes, he told his crew, doing the right thing is worth any price. As the galaxy began to recover, Nathan and Alina stayed close to Zara and the Coalition. Together, they worked to ensure the ceasefire held, monitoring both Earth and the Krill for signs of betrayal. It wasn't easy. Old wounds ran deep, but progress was possible. One evening, as Nathan looked out at the stars from the asteroid base, Alina joined him. "Do you think it'll last?" she asked softly. The ceasefire held, for a time, but peace was fragile, like a thin sheet of ice over deep water. Across the galaxy, tensions simmered just below the surface. On Earth, protests continued, with citizens divided between those who supported the ceasefire and others who believed humanity had surrendered too much. In space, colonies struggled to rebuild after years of conflict, their resources stretched thin. The Krill remained watchful, their queen keeping her warriors on high alert, ready to strike if Earth showed any sign of betrayal. Nathan Brooks and Alina Ramirez worked tirelessly alongside Zara Venn and the Coalition to ensure the agreement stayed intact. They traveled to damaged worlds, meeting with survivors and listening to their stories. Many were angry, at Earth, at the Krill, at everyone. They also wanted hope. Nathan and Alina did their best to provide that, even when it felt like an impossible task. One day, while visiting a human colony on the edge of Krill territory, they encountered Captain Ryan Mitchell. He had been assigned to oversee reconstruction efforts in the region, ensuring the ceasefire was respected by both sides. His ship, the Aurora, now served as a symbol of cooperation rather than war. "It's not easy," Ryan admitted as they walked through the ruins of a settlement. "People here lost everything. They're scared, and they don't trust anyone, not even each other." Elena nodded, her eyes scanning the makeshift shelters where families huddled together. "But they're still here, still trying. That counts for something." Ryan smiled faintly. "Yeah, maybe you're right." Despite the challenges, small victories began to emerge. Farmers planted crops again. Engineers repaired damaged infrastructure. Children played in the streets, laughter echoing where silence had once reigned. These moments reminded Nathan and Elena why they had fought so hard for peace. But danger still lurked. Rumors spread of rogue factions, both human and alien, refusing to accept the ceasefire. Some sought to sabotage the agreement, believing violence was the only solution. One night, Nathan and Elena received word of an attack planned against a key supply convoy carrying materials to rebuild a devastated planet. The attackers aimed to spark renewed conflict, blaming the Krill for the strike. "We can't let that happen," Nathan said firmly as he and Elena reviewed the intelligence in their quarters. "If this convoy is destroyed, everything we've worked for could fall apart." They alerted Ryan, who mobilized the Aurora to intercept the convoy and protect it. With Zora's help, they also reached out to trusted allies within the Krill ranks, asking them to monitor the situation from their side. For the first time, humans and Krill worked together openly, united by a common goal. The night of the attack, the convoy moved cautiously through contested space. Hidden ships closed in, weapons charging. Just as the ambush began, the Aurora appeared, its shields glowing as it positioned itself between the attackers and the convoy. A fierce battle erupted, but thanks to the combined efforts of Ryan's crew and the Krill reinforcements, the attackers were driven off. When the dust settled, Nathan stood on the bridge of the Aurora, watching as the convoy resumed its journey. "We stopped them," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "For now, yes, but there will be more threats. We have to stay ready." Ryan joined them, his expression grim but determined. "Then we'll face them, together." As the galaxy slowly rebuilt, scars remained, but so did resilience. People learned to live alongside one another, finding strength in unity. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And sometimes, that was enough. Months passed, and the galaxy began to heal. The ceasefire held firm, though not without effort. Nathan Brooks, Elena Ramirez, and their allies worked tirelessly to maintain the fragile peace. They traveled from planet to planet, addressing grievances, mediating disputes, and fostering understanding between species. It was slow, grueling work, but every small success brought them closer to a brighter future. On Earth, reforms swept through the government. President Laura Hayes stepped down, acknowledging her role in the mistakes of the past. A new administration took over, one committed to transparency and cooperation. General Samuel Drake faced trial for his involvement in Project Eclipse, and though many called for harsh punishment, he was sentenced to life in prison instead. To some, it felt like justice. To others, it wasn't enough. But the focus shifted away from revenge and toward rebuilding trust. The Krill, too, made changes. Their queen, once feared for her aggression, became a voice for restraint and diplomacy. She ordered her warriors to stand down and encourage trade with neighboring species. Slowly, the Krill's reputation began to shift, from conquerors to potential partners. Captain Ryan Mitchell and the crew of the Aurora became heroes in the eyes of many. Their defiance of unjust orders had inspired others to question authority and fight for what was right. Ryan himself was promoted, tasked with leading a new fleet dedicated to humanitarian missions rather than war. He accepted the role humbly, knowing how much work lay ahead. Nathan often found himself reflecting on everything that had happened. One evening, as he stood on the observation deck of a stealthy vessel, staring at the stars, Zora Van joined him. "You've done well," she said softly, her golden eyes shimmering in the dim light. Nathan shook his head. "We all did this together. I just played a small part." Zara smiled faintly. "Sometimes, small parts make the biggest difference." Alina approached them moments later, holding a tablet displaying reports from across the galaxy. "Things are improving," she said, her tone cautiously optimistic. "Trade routes are reopening. Refugees are returning home. People are starting to believe in peace again. But it's still fragile," Nathan added, turning to face her. "One wrong move, and it could all fall apart." Alina nodded. "True, but we'll keep working. We have to." As they stood there, united by shared purpose, Benjamin Cole arrived. He looked older now, his hair streaked with gray, but there was a quiet strength in his posture. "I wanted to thank you both," he said, his voice steady, "for giving me a chance to make things right." "You earned it," Nathan replied, extending a hand. Benjamin shook it firmly, gratitude in his eyes. In the months that followed, the coalition expanded, welcoming more species eager to contribute to lasting peace. Together, they established a Galactic Council, a forum where representatives from all corners of the galaxy could address concerns and resolve conflicts peacefully. It wasn't perfect, arguments still flared, and old wounds lingered, but it was a start. One day, as Nathan walked through a bustling marketplace on Lyria, he saw humans and aliens laughing together, trading goods, sharing stories. Children of different species played side by side, their laughter ringing out like music. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel hope, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. When he returned to the ship, Alina greeted him with a smile. "What's next?" she asked. Nathan thought for a moment before answering. "Whatever comes our way. As long as we face it together, I think we'll be okay." And with that, they set course for the stars, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy was far from perfect, but it was moving forward, one step at a time.